Sherelle?
Here.
Dan?
Here.
Barry?
Here.
Louise?
Here.
Adam?
Here.
Shane?
Here.
James?
Here.
Tate?
We have a quorum, we will proceed. First item tonight, disposition of the minutes from the 20th of July. What are your wishes?
Move to approve.
I'll second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. New business, item number 1.
Okay, good evening. So the first item for tonight is LU-32-23, which is Ed Rentamaki on behalf of Andrew Esterby. They're requesting a zone change to the rural residential zoning district. The proposed property is approximately 5.03 acres, and the parent property is currently within the agricultural zoning district. The applicant is requesting this zone change as part of the minor subdivision process. They're currently working through the minor subdivision process to create 2 lots, the larger one being approximately 155 acres, which will then remain in the agricultural zoning district. And the applicant will request this zone change for that smaller 5.03 acre lot. The purpose of the newly created lot is to encompass the existing home, which is potentially, as far as I've been told, will be sold to the current renter while keeping the farmland that surrounds it intact. Access to both of these newly created lots will be off of 57th Street Northwest. We did receive back from Mont Township saying that they are undecided.
Any questions for Michelle? Hearing none, we'll open the public hearing and then we'll come back to the board. Public hearing is open. Ed, do you have any comments? Anybody else? Would the applicant like to speak? Clayton, did you have some comments? Would you please come forward up to the mic, please, and state your name for the record? We could have it brought back to you. Please, Clayton, please use the mic. Clayton Lee for the record.
Usually I get muted, but
Well, we're recording and our sound system is not as good as we'd like it to be.
I'm okay with it. Can you hear me yet? Yes. Okay. We just got a few questions, being one of the closest neighbors to this parcel. Biggest question, I guess, is where does this stop? I mean, if we basically rezone 5 acres here, 5 acres there, at what point does the whole township, whole section at least, get rezoned to residential? I don't have a real personal feeling one way or the other on this. I don't even know the people that are living there right now. Is there any kind of a master plan? Is there any kind of a restriction on putting in 5 acres here, 5 acres there? Are we gonna end up with these little parcels all over the place? I don't know. And the rural residential that's asking to be rezoned to, what does that encompass as far as, is that strictly a single family zoning? And will it stay that way? I guess we don't want to see any more traffic than necessary up that road. We've got enough road issues out there already with the oil field traffic. There's nothing I can do to slow that traffic down. I don't know if there is on your part. It's a township road. I don't know if there is a process for the county to take that over from the township at some point. We do have road issues, pretty serious issues, but it's still home. We love it. Just kind of want to know if there is a master long-term plan for situations like this. I don't know where the commission stands on that. I did talk to Blaine Jorgensen, Township Board President, and he did relay that officially, yes, the township is undecided because, I mean, we ask these same questions back and forth all the time, and none of us really know the answers. Don't know that there are any answers. The one other question I have is, with the rural residential zoning, is it true that that is a 40-acre, anything under 40 acres has to be rezoned rural residential? Is that the case? I mean, I'm hearing this gossip, basically. If it is, 40 acres to me seems pretty excessive. I mean, if somebody comes in and wants to do a 35-acre chicken farm or hog farm, something along that line, where's the exemption for them where they don't have to go through rural residential? I mean, the rural residential, does it really change anything other than taxes? I don't know. I got a lot of questions, guys, but.
Well, we'll let Michelle respond first,
Okay.
and that'll come back. I'm sure the board members have some comments too, Clay. Thank you.
Yes, so, okay, so rural residential is for single-family residences within the rural setting. So, and it is 40 acres according to our zoning ordinance. Agricultural has to be 40 and above. So anything under 40 has to go through the zone change process. Now, that's not to say that if it's 39.62 acres, that we're not going to work with people on things like that. If they were to ever want more than one home, they'd have to go through a conditional use process. You guys would be notified. You'd have your chance here as well. I don't see that on this property per se, but I can't speak for that.
Okay.
Some of your questions, or,
Some of them, yeah.
okay.
I came really poorly prepared tonight. I don't know what all my questions are, really. Just mostly want to know what's going on and what the end result is supposed to be.
Thank you, Michelle. Let's go back to your first question, though. The question of where does it stop? There's a process for development in the county. There's a master plan. There's a comprehensive plan in the county. There's different zones, as you're, I'm sure, fully aware. But we've had some instances of spot zoning, and I'm sure you're familiar with some of them because you drive by them, depending on which road you go to town on. And we're not real fond of those. Some of those slipped through. Some of those were forced through. But this board in particular, I don't think is real fond of them from the actions that we've taken in the past. So we like to see orderly development. We're not much in favor of ranchettes popping up all over the place. We're trying to make it in a manner that has the least impact to the agricultural sector and to the people who are out there who are in the farming and ranching business. Having said that, it's also really difficult to, when somebody wants to sell their farmstead, to hold that up so that they can achieve some value out of it. And many times they come here, Clay, and they are family members who just want to own the farmstead. But when we get done with the public hearing, I'm hoping there's some other comment from board members. But in this portion of the meeting is for the public to speak.
Okay. Sounds good to me.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Any other questions? Third and final time. Hearing none, I will close the public hearing, turn it over to the board for questions or comments.
I have a question. The renter that is looking to buy, how long have they lived in the house?
I'm not sure. Do you happen to know at all, Ed?
Other questions?
one of the comments I would make is that we have indeed done quite a few of these situations where we've rezoned into a smaller acreage an existing house throughout the town, the county. And in my mind, that's probably preferable than letting the house become abandoned and eventually fall down. And it's also a benefit, as you said, to the owner, because oftentimes these are farmsteads where the person is no longer going to live on the farm, but somebody else wants to live there. And sometimes it's a relative, a kid, or, you know, one of their kids, or a sibling, or somebody that wants to buy it, but sometimes it's not, it's just somebody that wants to live in the country. And I do see that as preferable to just having a bunch of abandoned farmsteads sitting around. I do believe that if this request were to rezone this into 10 or 12 5-acre pieces, we would be looking at it very differently, because we do not, our long-term plan does not advocate putting housing developments way out in the middle of 160 acres someplace. I'm not sure exactly how far from town this is offhand, but several miles, I know
Clay, how
that.
far out are you?
Yeah, I mean, so I think that would be a valid concern if we were talking about doing something like that, but to look at preserving an existing home for someone to live in seems to me to be a useful thing to do.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chair, I'm along the same lines as Shrill, and you know, I've questioned many of these. If we're rezoning them for someone to move something on or to build something on, then I have a problem, because you're changing the occupancy out there. Right now, somebody's living there. All we're doing is rezoning this little piece of ground so that they can still live there. We aren't changing anything. We're not adding more people there. We're not adding, you know, any more services there, I don't feel. So something like this, I don't have a problem with. It's when we're rezoning 5 acres and they're gonna move a house out there, or they're gonna build another house. We keep doing that, and that's where I think Mr. Lee is saying they keep adding people out in the country. We're not adding anybody, we're just giving somebody this piece of ground.
Anything further? I had a question for you that came from a phone call I had several days ago. The septic system on this farmstead, is it contained within the 5 acres? Okay. With some certainty? Do you believe it with some certainty? Okay. As in, it runs downhill? Okay. All right, close enough. Thank you, sir. What are the wishes of the board?
I'll make a motion to approve with staff comment.
And a second.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any other questions? Any other concerns? Roll call, please.
Louise,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Adam,
Yes.
Sherelle,
Yes.
Shane,
Yes.
Dan.
Yes, motion carries.
Okay, so number 2 tonight is LU-34-23, which is Jason Ekblad on behalf of Selin Construction. They're requesting a conditional use permit to open and operate a gravel pit on a 160-acre parcel. The property is currently within the agricultural zoning district. The location has had mining of sand and gravel products in the past, but is not currently in use. Mineral extraction, including sand, gravel, and scoria operations, do require the conditional use permit within this agricultural zoning district. We have reached out to the Williams County Water Resource Board, and they do not believe that the activities of the gravel pit will cause an increase in runoff. However, they did say that they should be aware and make sure that they do not adversely affect the East Fork Little Muddy River. Access to the property is off of 129th Avenue Northwest. We did not hear anything back from Dublin Township on this.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Michelle? Michelle, do you ever, when you don't receive something back from the township, do you ever call one of the officers and say, where are you guys at on this? Are you sending comments? Are you not sending comments? I know there's a lot of townships out there.
Right, I have not, but that's a good idea to do.
I know on the city level, which only has to deal with Williston and Farron and those people out east, Stony Creek, that they will call and ask because some of their board members insist on knowing what the townships think.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Question. Michelle, is this gonna, do they have any idea how much traffic this is gonna bring in? Or, I mean, I'm surprised there's no public comment when you're opening a gravel pit off of a main road in a township. I'm guessing it's gonna have to maintain the road. This
Right.
is like a heck of an impact.
Yeah, they, I guess he did not say how much traffic they expect up there. I did talk to him about the road going into the property, and he said that the current person who farms takes his tractor in there, and they don't ever have any problems with the road within inside the property either. When I talked to Jason, he didn't sound like it would be that big of an operation up there, but I'm not sure.
Another question, when they do stuff like this, do they have to get an access permit from the township or county, or they can just build something in the ditch and go, or how do they go about doing that?
Well, there's already an access road in there, so I do not believe. Do you know, Cameron, if they need to get a permit?
Well, I would say that, I mean, having it already, it looks to me like there's 2 access points already, and there's been mining there in the past. This is, 20 years ago, they wouldn't even ask, they'd have just went and did it. So with our ordinances nowadays, I would think it'd be no more than it's been before.
Yeah, and the main access to that is County 11, so it is a county highway that accesses that, not a township road. Did we solicit for county highway department on this one, Michelle?
Yep, I sent to Wayne, and he didn't say anything back, so.
Wayne's usually pretty good. If he has a concern, he'll usually let us know. But that is a county highway that has the access already existing. But if they do need a new access, they would either have to find out who owns the road. If it's the county, they'd go to the highway department. If it's a township, they'd have to go through the township to obtain access.
Okay, well, let's go to the public hearing, then we'll come back with further questions. Is there any comments or questions from the public? Please come forward, state your name for the record.
I'm Jackie Ralph, and I was just wondering, do they have any length of time they're planning on doing this project? Like how long they're gonna have it open?
He didn't, yeah, no. I can find out, though, if you'd like me to.
And then my next question is, I know that there is a community that is very close to this area, and do they have any concerns with interference with dust, traffic, all that with all those people in that community? Because it's right next door. Are we on the,
Are you sure that?
Are you talking about the-
There's another one.
there's
coming
another
up?
one?
Yeah.
'Cause this
Oh, there's
one,
2?
According to the map, it looks to me like it's.
Yeah, there's
like out in
2.
the middle of
Oh,
nowhere.
sorry. That's for the next one. Never mind.
But we'll invite you back. Any other comments or concerns? Third and final time. Close the public hearing, turn it over to the board.
I would make a motion to approve following staff comments.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Could we zoom out for a second on the overhead and take a larger view of this one?
Further?
Are we able to see the nearest residence?
So down to the right. there's
So,
some-
if you go straight down the road, there is a, I don't know how far down it is. There is like a farm down there. They have really cute cows across from them. Yeah, right where that little rural residential, there is a home there. But if I remember correctly, that's the only one that I saw that's close going up, but I didn't drive up further north from the property.
Even with this, I mean, we're talking about almost like a mile and a half.
Yeah, it's a pretty good distance still, yes.
Any other questions? Roll call, please.
Barry,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Adam,
Yes.
Sherelle,
Yes.
Shane,
Yes.
Louise,
Yes.
Dan.
Yes, motion carries.
Okay, so the third one tonight is LU-0036-23, which is Ryan Walla, who is requesting a conditional use permit for a second dwelling on his property that is within the rural residential zoning district. We did hear back on this one from Big Meadow Township, and they did recommend approval. The subject property is approximately 15.22 acres and is within MS 16-0058. They are requesting a conditional use permit for the additional dwelling on their property. They are planning to utilize the additional dwelling as their primary residence, with the current dwelling to be kept as storage and/or office space. The applicant is currently working through the building permit process and obtaining all necessary permits contingent on the approval of this conditional use permit. Access to the subject property is off of 109th Avenue Northwest.
Is the applicant here?
No, no, he's not. He had to go to Minnesota for a funeral. He had his uncle passed away, so he called me yesterday and asked if I would speak on his behalf. I guess if there's any questions, I can try.
Can I have a question about this?
Yeah.
If he's not planning to live in there, once he has his new house built, why does he even need a conditional use permit?
Because it could still be lived in.
Yeah, he bought this a farmstead, and it's got the house that's there is, well, it's pretty loosely defined as a house. It's like give or take, I think it's just under 300 square feet.
Yeah,
and
he said that it
like
was-
an old hunting cabin that somebody had kind of cleaned up at one time, but well, him and his 3 kids and wife, I don't believe are going to be. I guarantee you, they're not living in it.
Well, technically, somebody could live in my tack room too, but it's not a second residence. I don't understand why we're considering this as a second residence. Was someone living in there before he bought it?
I think years ago somebody did, that because of I believe it was like a hunting shack, and then whoever had it would show up at, hunting season or, but anyway, he'd asked me about it, and I told him, well, the best thing to do would just be get the conditional use permit running and get things squared away, because he was kind of concerned about, construction season's kind of short, and he wants to get things rolling. And he wasn't worried about the fee for the CUP, so figured that'd be the quickest way to get things moving, and he was fine with it.
If I may speak a little bit, not on this specific case, but in general on why we require that. For the decade I've been with the county, the early days, I can't tell you the amount of properties where we had, again, not the specific property, but situations that were sort of similar. And sure enough, they would occupy the second residence, and then we have an issue not only through the health district with either not being big enough for septic or not approved and they're out of compliance. So usually we'll look at if it's a structure that could be occupied, has an address already, even though it may not have been lived in for many years, it's still considered a residence. So there's not really a hardline determination to say, well, somebody hasn't lived there in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. If it still has an address, it's considered through only, not only our mapping, but also through the assessing department as a home. That's where we, as staff, have to determine whether that would be considered a second residence. I realize not all property is going to be that way, but I have seen many dozens of times where a situation similar to this, where it's, oh, nobody's lived in this farmstead for 20 years, they build a new home, and now people are living in the farmstead, people are living in the home, neighbors are calling and complaining to our office that there's cars, trucks, people coming in, day out. So we follow what building code says, and if it has an address and it's considered an occupied, or can be an occupied structure, that's already considered an existing residential home. We do try to work with people if building seasons are getting short. Let's say there's a mobile home there, they want to move one out and put a new one in. We just make them write to us, so we have something in writing that says they are guaranteeing that they will remove the old one once the new one gets placed. So there are, we have to have a common sense approach at the same time.
I'm just concerned about the situation where the guys build a brand-new home to live in, and it's got this old rundown home that's actually using for storage, and they have a conditional use permit for their home. That seems sort of strange.
Well, I think if at that time, like if they, when they get everything done and they convert this to just a overgrown storage room, we should be able to get rid of the CUP and just make the main dwelling the only dwelling on the property.
That's certainly doable. What we would typically would do, it's not common, but we would have like an inspector show that there's no rooms that could be lived in. And then a lot of times they'll have the address removed, not always though. Sometimes they can be there for emergency purposes, but I agree. And so really you would want the primary structure to be considered the main home, and anything, any accessory would be the conditional use permit structure. But that's, the CUP is for the property as a whole, and so that's what we would look at as a whole, not necessarily what structure it would fall under. We just see there's two or one, and that's kind of how it would be viewed.
Any other questions? Cheryl, I don't know if you were here that night, but several months ago, or maybe this spring, we had a situation somewhat like this out on the Glenora Highway, where they wanted to build a new home, but then rent out the second home. And that one wasn't approved.
Well, yeah, I remember that, but they were living in the second home that they were wanting to rent out. And that was a fairly recently built home. I mean, if we looked at every farmstead around here, every place around here that has an old abandoned house, that a new house built on it, we'd be doing a lot of CUPs.
Well, and I should add, we also updated the ordinance last year, and that's where the 40 acre came into play. So now if there are 40 acres or more like a farm with farmsteads, they don't need a CUP to have a second dwelling. We did change that to relax the ordinance some for these larger parcels.
Okay. Any other questions? Are we ready for a motion?
I move to approve staff comments.
Thank you in a second.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Further discussion? Roll call, please.
James,
Aye.
Mark,
Yes.
Adam,
Yes.
Sherelle,
Yes.
Shane,
Yes.
Louise,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Dan.
Yes, motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, so the next one is LU-37-23, which is Landon Askew on behalf of Highline Water LLC. He is requesting a conditional use permit to open and operate a gravel pit on approximately 120-acre parcel within the agricultural zoning district. On this one, we did not receive any comment from Farron Township. Pretty much exactly the same type of situation as the last one. This one did have mining of sand and gravel products in the past, but is not currently in use. The mineral extraction, including the sand, gravel, and any scoria operations, do require a conditional use permit within the agricultural zoning district. Water Resource Board also just kind of commented about not allow, just make sure that they're aware and do not adversely affect the Little Muddy River. Kevin didn't see that the activities would cause an increase in any runoff. Access to this property is off of 58th Street Northwest, and they do have an access easement in through another parcel to get in there. The applicant will work on building up the access road if the conditional use permit is approved.
Okay, any questions for Michelle? I'll open the public hearing. Comments from the public?
Jackie Ralph, same questions as before. How long do they expect to have this open and the community that is right next to the property? I was just wondering about, because North Dakota's windy and they're right there. Those are my questions.
The applicant is here, so he could probably answer some of these.
That would be great. Please state your name for the record, if you would, please.
Yeah. Hi, Landon Eskew, representing Highline Water. As far as a indeterminate amount of time, this isn't really something that I've done before, I guess, so I don't know how long something like this would take, but there's an existing operation that was there probably 20, 30, 40 years ago, and they've done a real poor job of kind of reclaiming it, so there's a lot of piles that are overgrown. I'm sure that the Williams County Weed Board would like to make sure that that's not spreading any more than it already is. So using the existing spot that's already there to just continue the operations, but then towards the end of it, be able to reclaim that. And then whatever rules are in place as far as dust control and things like that would be followed anyway. And I lived on Freedom Lane on the northeast corner, so that's probably the Little Muddy Estates that you're talking about, kind of that area. I had a couple of my neighbors call because they got the letter too, and they just asked, you know, what's your plan and everything, or is it going to be visible? And I told them where and what, and they were like, oh yeah, that's not going to bother me. So it's over a quarter mile away from all of the residents where the activity would be, and at that distance, even machinery equipment isn't a noise concern, I guess, either.
Any questions for the applicant?
Do you run this operation like at night where there's gonna be lights, stuff running, or is it just gonna be daylight times there, or?
Since this is a new operation, a new idea for me, I don't think that it would be worth it to be mining at nighttime, kind of a thing. That just seems unsafe. I don't know if out in the country or other operations do have nighttime mining operations, but I can't see where we would need to.
So are you going to be subbing out the crushing of the gravel to a third party, someone?
Current plan, yes, yeah.
Okay.
Anything else?
So on this one map here, you got the area of interest, so that would be about as far away on this parcel as you could get from the residences surrounding it. And I was just for her, I didn't know if you'd seen where they planned on, or. Okay, well, no, but I just wanted to make, you know, if you've seen that, or if you want to take a look at it, or. Okay, all right.
Do you have a projection of how many trucks would be in and out, and then addition to traffic that already exists there?
So I haven't done a study on how much sand and gravel or of anything that's there. So based off of the water wells that have been drilled in the area, there's probably 30 to 40 feet of sand and gravel that's extractable. But since they've already taken a fair amount out of this one spot, I haven't been back in. It was flooded from all the spring runoff, so it's still kind of flooded. So I haven't done any studies on how much is there, how long it would remain open or anything like that. Yeah.
So the area that's been developed, would you be planning on trying other areas like closer to the housing development to see if there's gravel there?
If you went like as a radius as the crow flies with this particular L-shaped parcel, all of them are at least a quarter mile away from the houses and the housing, and where I would have lived before would have been about a half mile away, and you can't see from the road and from the houses, you wouldn't be able to see the area, I guess, or location. So even if we did spread out and move around a little bit, it's still all at least a quarter mile away from everybody.
Anything else? Thank you. Other comment?
We did have some comments via email, I believe.
Yes.
I did not print them out. I do know, though, that we did receive comment from two people who are within that subdivision, and both were opposed to the operation. A lot like what Jackie did say, like the dust, the traffic, the noise, things like that were all kind of talked about in both emails.
Okay, cool.
I will make a comment about noise. There's a pipe inspection company half a mile from me. I can hear every machine they run on their pipes, assuming the wind isn't blowing 30 miles an hour from the west. But when the wind isn't blowing, I can hear every machine they run. I can hear the guys talking. I can hear if they're playing radios loud. And I can hear their trucks coming in and out. And there's also two trucking companies that are also within half a mile, and I can hear all kinds of machinery running in those. So a quarter mile is not going to affect heavy equipment and the noise from it.
So like this access road, so you're gonna drive right through VacuJet's yard? Is that correct?
Yes, you drive right through VacuJet's yard. And then like on the image where that star is, there's a, like a wired gate that you will go through, and then you go down and in. It was a nice little hike.
Yeah, 'cause I drove through there, but how's that gonna work driving, say there's 20 trucks coming in and out, they're hauling gravel right through VacuJet's property?
They did sign an access easement that's on record, so I would have, I guess, hoped that VacuJet and the current owners, the Bakken, I think it's like Bakken something, but they signed the easement, so I would have assumed that hopefully they would have known, and they did get the same letters as everybody else about the gravel pit and everything coming. Yeah, if you look up on the map, there's like those 3 purple squares. They're going to be the very first one, is kind of like you can see VacuJet shop there. Because when I first went out there, there's like a sign that says no trespassing, and I kind of like to follow the rules. So I turned around and I was like, oh, I'll figure it out later. And then once I talked to Landon, he told me how to get in there. And I went in a couple days later, but
Why don't you elevate us a little bit on the picture, and we'll pretend we're flying over. Please.
I guess I just assumed, because to come off Highway 2 and straight over past, like what he's saying, past Peterbilt and down that road. Because it's just a straight shot right down into where you access the property.
Restate the question, I guess, real quick.
I just got the sign from the back of the room that said, use the mic or I'll smack you with this.
So the access would be off of 58th coming from Peterbilt back to the east. VacuJet property ends where the building's at, but that road is a section line road, so the gates that they have on there and the no trespassing sign are not enforceable because that's a section line access road. So I'd be continuing the section line access with the new road that's down in that area. And then you could technically catch the truck bypass if you head out and south. You could, but heading due west back to the highway is probably more preferable in that case.
Thank you.
Was that 105.5 road?
I would doubt it.
Yeah, it's pavement almost all the way there. Yeah.
There was a time when we had time to go look at these projects, but the last 15 years, we haven't had that kind of time. Anything else? Any other questions?
Well, evidently, they must have went through it or must have thought something about it, because we got a copy of access easement right here.
Present access is a two-track trail that couldn't take 105.5 or semis or anything like that, but it goes around the back side of VacuJet's building around the north side. That's not preferable to go through their yard, so the portion of the section line that's on the southernmost part of the VacuJet yard would be the road going through, just to continue on there. So it'd be public access.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Do we have any background on the industrial zoning block where VacuJet sits? Is that a long legacy item? Does anyone have any background on that?
I do not.
Cameron, please.
You said that, if I heard you correctly, the industrial parcel is right to the north there. I believe at one time, VacuJet had plans to create a sanitation facility to service what was going to be the Stropic development. And then shortly after, the city had extended their ETJ boundaries, and I believe it just kind of fell through. But that's from my recollection of those parcels.
Anything else?
So all of the comments that we got on this project were concerns on the road and dust, but I know there are ways to minimize that dust. Is that something that can get put in place, or how does that get enforced?
We can put it into the CUP that they have to have dust control if that's something that you guys wish. For when the road is built up, they'll have to go through, I believe it's a township road, if I remember correctly when I was looking at it. I believe it's a township road, so they'd have to obtain all the necessary permits and applications through the township and to be able to build that road up to county specs.
I don't think the concern was just about the road and dust. The concern was about the dust that would be raised from the mining of the gravel and digging, you know, they're gonna be digging and moving and loading and.
Yeah.
Other questions, comments? What are the wishes of the board?
I move that we deny this CUP.
We have a motion to deny. Is there a second?
I would second it for discussion, yeah.
Discussion.
I mean, obviously, you can only mine the gravel where the gravel's at. That's along that little muddy there. I have a hard time denying somebody access to their minerals. It is, according to what the best guess I can come up with is the very point on where the area of interest to the southwest, east, to the first lot there, looks to me like it's gonna be well over a quarter. I mean, it's probably, it's closer to a half mile than it would be a quarter mile. I just, that was my thoughts.
I guess the trucks are going out the opposite direction of the houses too, so I mean, your noise isn't going towards the houses, I guess. If it was going south there, I could see where it'd be trouble with the houses, but
Right, and I could certainly, I would be just happy with having some kind of a, because I was like with Sherrill, I believe they were talking about the dust they're concerned about is the dust at the pit or at the mining, not so much up on the road back to the northwest, but that could be included too. You know.
Just fleshing that point out, so if we approve it, there is a significant dust issue. We feel like the applicant isn't, we feel like the applicant isn't making efforts to mitigate it. What would the process be for those homeowners to potentially force mitigation or slow down the gravel
Well,
pit?
the whole thing is run off a CUP. If there's stipulations in the CUP that says you will do this and you won't do this, and if they're doing it or not doing it, we can pull the CUP. I mean, they're kind of living on an edge, you know. I mean, it's
Anything further? This is a good example of going back to the first application that we had, why we're so concerned about residential areas in the countryside, where you run into these kind of things, whether it's a farming operation or a gravel operation. You know, the gravel pit was there first, wasn't in use, but it was there first. So it's, you know, it becomes a question of where does his freedom end? Where does the homeowner's freedom begins? And that's why the conditional use permit should hopefully mitigate some of those concerns. Okay? Any other questions?
Just one comment. Is there a way to control dust in a gravel mining operation?
well, I would say they're right along the Little Muddy. I'm pretty sure they'll have access to plenty water.
Okay, let's reread the motion. Just to remind everybody. The motion was to deny.
Correct.
Okay, that's the point I wanted to make. Roll call, please.
Mark,
no.
Adam,
No.
Sherelle,
Yes.
Shane,
No.
Louise,
No.
Barry,
No.
James,
No.
Dan.
No, but I still love you, Sherelle, anyway.
Well, somebody had to make a motion to get us talking.
Now, I'll entertain another motion. We have to have a positive motion.
I would make a motion to approve following staff comments, and which would include dust control and really hard to making small rocks into, or big rocks into small ones quiet. But there was I don't know why I can't think of it now. There was two comments on that. One was the dust. What was the other one?
Noise and traffic.
Oh yeah, there we go. Yeah. The dust in the mine itself, and if there's, in the future, the traffic coming out, if there's an issue with the dust on the road, that will be addressed also.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Just to clarify, what I meant by a positive motion is that we have to have a majority of vote in a, all right, in a motion to deny, it has, or approve. You know what I'm trying to say, but I'm not doing a very good job of it. Roll call.
James,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Louise,
Yes.
Shane,
Yes.
Sherelle,
No,
Adam,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Dan.
Yes, motion carries. We have one item left on the agenda. Cameron's taking the long walk again.
Thank you, Commissioners. District 1 Commission seat, its term is coming to an end at the end of this month. That's the position that's held by Commissioner Shiloh. Human Resources did open that up for anybody in the public that lives within District 1 to apply. We didn't receive any applications. However, Sherelle did say that she wished to be reappointed. So what I'm looking for today is if the Planning Board sees fit to reappoint Sherelle, and then if that is the decision that's made, I will have it sent over and then the county commission will approve it on their September 5th meeting. And
Okay.
the term would be from 9/1/23 to 8/31/27.
Is there a motion to make a recommendation?
I would make a motion to recommend Sherelle for the commission seat, for the planning and zoning seat, and whatever dates Cameron had, so.
That works.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Further comments? We would hate to lose you. All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, staff. Great to see you all. Thank you, folks, for coming in.
Motion adjourned.
We're adjourned.
Yep, so then we'll take it to the board, I'll add in the dust information that they talked about, and then it'll go to the Board of County Commissioners on September 5th. I'm like, he just said it, September 5th, so it'll go to Board of County Commissioners that morning, probably good to come to that one too if you are available, just because there are questions and comments, but, yeah, and then we'll go from there, and if they say yes, it's granted, and you can get busy on all the things you need to get busy on. Yeah.
And then just for everybody, future, whoever
Yeah.
wants to play with this, Highland Water is a frac water sourcing company, so I've already got industrial water permitted from the exact spot, so dust control is zero issue at all.
Good.
I was just trying to,
That's a good, yes, that's very good.
so, right now there's 600 million gallons of water that's permitted. And we can use it for anything industrial related, including some drowning out.
Perfect. That's awesome. That's very good to know. Yeah, well, thank you.